standing your truth. Every voice matters, yeah, we see you.
Love who you are, let the world know. This is your moment, let your light glow. More than a story, more than a name. We break the silence, rewrite the frame. Autism, neurodivergence, every mind shines bright. Mental health, self-love, stepping into the light. For the parents, the dreamers, the ones who push through. Auesomely You, we celebrate you. Oh, 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 oh. Auesomely You, we rise, we shine. Vowing voices, breaking the lines. This ain't just a podcast, this is a move. Celebrating every story, making room. For the ones who speak in ways they don't understand. For the hearts that love big, for the ones who take a stand. For the ones who see the world in a different way. We amplify your voice, let the world hear what you say. Every challenge, every win, every step you take. You are seen, you are loved, this is your space. No more silence, no more fear. Auesomely You, we're standing here. We are the voices, we are the change.
Hey, you guys, welcome back to Auesomely You Podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Jordan, and today we already know we have another amazing guest. This time, this guest is autistic just like me, and you know what I'm going to say? I want you to sit in their shoes for 30 minutes and embrace their story. I started every episode off like that because I want my awesome tribe to understand, hey, it's time for us to embrace another story today on this beautiful Wednesday. Today we have Ico, who works with neurodiverse people, and he discovers and embodies their true self-expression so they can celebrate life that they love both inside and out. Ico has invested over 550 hours into learning and embracing self-love and self-acceptance, and both for themselves and their clients. Ico is indefinitely caring organism, and he used the word they them. So I want to introduce them to our stage, Ico.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Now, thank you for coming. I appreciate every story that hit this platform because it's so much that people don't understand about individuals like us, and creating this platform is about our stories and celebrating us. So, can you tell our audience who is Ico Edwards?
Sure. So, ECO is a spiritually gifted name, which stands for Infinitely Caring Organism. And that name started to go and come about back in October of 2018, when I first started to identify as being queer and gender fluid. I'd already been a coach for several years at that point, and I was at a spiritual retreat. And at that spiritual retreat, I started to talk to another person there about how I'm looking to go and co-create a world where, as long as the people directly involved are consenting and honoring their relationship agreements, it doesn't matter what other people think about what you've consented to. And the guy paused for a minute and went, "Enlightened consent, eco." And it popped in my head as ICO. A couple months later, a lover of mine introduced me to a longtime friend of hers, introduced me as Eco as I was trying out that name. And he paused for a minute, went Eco, ICO, Infinitely Caring Organism. And that is part of who I'm committed to be as I go forward in this world, in the embodiment of love and the possibility of connection.
I love that you gave yourself a spiritual name that embrace who you are. So my question is, with you embracing who you are, what made you want to use the pronouns they them? For people that are listening, like what is they them?
Sure. So with that, at that point in time back in 2018, I started to identify as being more than just a cis male, cis being a term that being identified as the gender that you were assigned at birth. And for me, going through a different personal growth process, I realized that I had this feminine side of me that wanted and needed to be expressed as well. Yet it wasn't a sense like a lot of other kind of trans people who are like, I'm in the wrong body and I don't identify with how I was assigned at birth. This was an addition to that. So while I have a strong feminine side that wants and needs to be expressed at times, I also have a masculine side that wants and needs to be expressed. So therefore, my pronouns that I use to encompass being the both and is they them, because it's both like a he him and she her that fluctuates back and forth depending upon what is really coming forward and what feels real and authentic to me at that point in time. So they them is the general way of what feels congruent to me.
Okay. I always ask that because I have a good friend, and she accepts people calling her she, but she prefer and I say she because she allows me to say she. She prefers to be called they them, and she's queer. And I noticed with being her friend, I noticed the disconnect with people when we get into the term they them, and people when we be called she. People want to call her she or them. So she accommodate people, air quote, by saying you can call her she, but that's not her favorite term. And I can resonate with what you said because of her. So I think that's pretty awesome that we actually touched on that platform. Now, my next question is, what does celebrating uniqueness mean to you? And how has it shaped your life with you being an autistic individual?
That is a great question. In celebrating uniqueness, what that means for me is really being able to embody and own all that I am within me. I spent so much of my life trying to be like everybody else, trying to be like neurotypical people, and acting normal. And I didn't even know that I was on the autism spectrum until I was 38 years old. And getting that diagnosis at 38 helped give me a lot of self compassion and understanding of why there were a lot of things that seemed to be so mismatched up to that point in my life. And since then, I've been able to incorporate that into owning who I am. And instead of trying to suppress and hide those kind of different quirks or ways of being that were societally unusual, I've learned to embody and embrace it and have that actually be okay within me. And what I have found is the more loving and accepting I am of myself, the more lovable and acceptable I seem to be to the rest of the world around me. So as I actually embody that, the more love and acceptance I also find in the world.
You know, I want to say this. I resonate with what you said because I'm 35. I I figured out at 33 that I was autistic. It took me 2 years to fully accept that I'm an autistic individual who have a late diagnosis. A lot of things add up because a lot of things don't make sense to me. Like, so I have a lot of social cues that maybe somebody neurotypical may understand, but me, it may be like, I didn't see that. I didn't get that. I didn't start talking until after 5 or a little bit after 5, and the cues was so there. But unfortunately, we have education and me and your generation about autism. So I resonate with that. So my next question is, I'm going to ask you is, which you getting your late diagnosis, how did that make you feel? Because me, I questioned so many things. I had to really, for 2 years, dig into my past to figure out, am I really autistic? Or am I just, you have some people in our industry who just call themselves autistic for clout, for for attention seeking, not understanding. Yes, you can self-diagnose yourself, but are you really autistic, or are you just saying it to be a part of a personality trait? So I wanted to touch on the late diagnosis because found that pretty amazing that you diagnosed yourself, or was that at 38? So that resonates so much with me. Can you touch on that?
Sure. I'm happy to go and touch on that. And for me, I do have a professional diagnosis. I do consider self-diagnosis to be valid as just as valid as having a clinical diagnosis. And I can understand that there are concerns of people just trying to be trendy when claiming to be like neurodivergent of some kind, whether it be ADHD or in being autistic or some other form of neurodiversity. Yet, for those of us who don't actually know it and then find out later in life, it helps make sense so much going later in life. And if you really go and break down and take a look at those of us who are on the spectrum in one form or another, it's like, why would someone pretend to be something like this? Because why would you put yourself into a vulnerable a vulnerable uh, demographic that is picked on, that is socially awkward, most often, usually isolated, and there is a lot of actual prejudice that happens when someone raises their hand and said, "Yes, I'm on the autism spectrum," because I'm on the spectrum in a way where I'm able to articulate myself fairly well, and I speak well with a relatively high intellect. I've had people literally look at me and say, "Hmm, are you really on the spectrum? Because you don't look autistic." It's like autism actually doesn't look a certain way. Yet for those of us, we have certain challenges, and instead of it being like a linear scale from one side to the other, it's more like an entire color wheel palette of like 6 or 7 different things, where we may be near genius level and savant in some and nearly non-functional in others, or anywhere in between on that spectrum. So I want to have compassion for anyone who sees themselves as being on the spectrum. And it's I, really up to the person, the individual, of like, is this actually my truth? Regardless of what any professional doctor says or what any self diagnosis test says, does this actually resonate with my heart and soul as part of who I am and what that means for how I express?
I agree with you. I want to touch on that. A lot of people don't know that autism is one you can self-diagnose yourself, and it's valid because it's not a really official test, but it's a test. And when we talk about just making the contact clues adding up, it's just like it's a moment in your life to be like, now it adds up. I try to fit in when I was younger. I wanted everybody to be my friend. I and then that's another thing you said that really resonated with me was when I finally admitted it. I admitted it in February. I admitted it in my son's birthday month because he's my purpose and my why. I remember people saying, "You don't look autistic," and I said to the person, "What does autism look like? I want to know." And I asked it in the most, trying to think of the way I asked it, casual way, but not casual way, that they looked at me and they was like, They put a hand up. I'm done. I said, no, I want to know. You're talking to a whole autism advocate. What does autism look like? They couldn't answer. They said it don't like you. I said autism doesn't have a look. That's a myth. Are you talking about Down syndrome? And they was like, oh, I said yeah. So then they was like, no, you're too smart to be autistic. I said that's because I'm considered the person who has lower support needs. I don't use the other terms, you know, higher support. I mean, high functioning or low
Mhm.
functioning. I don't use them terms. And then I was like, so, and I just remember hearing that. It's how you talk. I said, you know, it's words I cannot enunciate. I still stutter. You know, I was in speech therapy. I had an IEP growing up. I was in special education. Do you know that? They said, oh, I said, I said, yeah, I would not claim to be this because I'm a whole advocate for it. It took me 2 years to accept it. And I kept taking the same test over and over and over and over, getting the same results, thinking it was going to change. But anyway, the episode was not about me. I just had to, when you brought up the late diagnosis, I felt like that topic needed to be hit, especially on this platform because I love that we are now taking back autism, and we are understanding. Hey, I'm late to the party, but I'm here. So yeah, that's how I look at it. We're one big happy family. So my question is, how have you experienced as an advocate to change the way you view inclusion?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Well, it's really become what I've focused on. And after taking some time when I was diagnosed back when I was 38, back in 2021, I took some time to integrate that into understanding who I was. And I chose to actually embody that into my coaching. And for more than a year, I changed my moniker that I went by to being known as the Autistic Love Mystic, because I was still focused on being a relationship coach at that point. And throughout that time, one of the things that I did is I ran a program called Autistic Dating Success, where I actually worked with people who are on the autism spectrum to actually either attract a new love into their life or to escalate a relationship into a higher and deeper level. And every one of the participants that went through that program was able to find that kind of success, which I'm proud of that result. And even as I've continued going on, what I've come to go and realize is more important than trying to make or forge a relationship with someone else is the relationship that we have with ourselves. Because regardless of any promises that we go and make to someone else or any intentions that anyone else shares with us, I am the only person that is 100% guaranteed to be with me for my entire life. Therefore, I get to make my relationship with myself a top priority. And what I found is the healthier relationship that I have with me, it enables me to have healthier and deeper relationships with other people.
So my question is, I want to touch on two things. I want to, of course, touch on what you do, which is embodying self love, because that is something that I feel that a lot of us don't do, especially in this space, is read love on ourselves. I feel like we try to make ourselves neurotypical, and instead of just embracing and accepting who we are in the skin that God has created. So I'm going to touch on that first, and I'll come back for my second question.
Sure. So it's very common, especially if we grow up, regardless of us knowing that we're on the spectrum or not. Often is things like well-meaning comments of uh, parents trying to like stop the stimming that comes to us naturally as where bodies are naturally trying to actually just self-regulate, which one of the forms of that stereotypy of like is the arm flapping. going up and down, or just being really fidgety or in agitation, or the rocking back and forth can be another very common form of stimming. And um, those neurotypical parents and authority figures um, have used things in the past, like ABA, which stands for altering behavior, which tries to make us into the neurotypical, and we're often shamed or blamed with, like, why can't you just be like your siblings, or stop what you're doing, you're embarrassing me, and we want to go and please our parents, and we're dependent upon them for our survival, so we try to make ourselves look and act like everyone else. It can be a very typical thing for an autistic person to really learn to kind of mimic and mask. And ultimately, masking and pretending to be something you're not is something that is psychologically harmful. Ultimately, to the point where someone can get to a point of masking so much that they literally have a psychotic breakdown because they're being so inauthentic to who they are. So I really advocate for being able to be like, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is what I need, and being able to make accommodations for that, for your own sake and mental well being, as well as your overall happiness.
Mm, I do feel like when you start to truly embrace yourself, life just starts to become easy. Because I know me personally, with me more and with me embracing my purpose and embracing me more, I have been so happy. I can't complain. So I love that you focus on self love and truly accepting who you are. My question that I had for your part two was, I love that you had that program for people on the spectrum to date. So my question is going to be a controversial question. My question is, what is your thoughts on love on the spectrum? Because I know some people like it, some people do not like love on the spectrum because it does not focus on people that have higher support needs versus the people who have lower support needs, like me and you.
That is a fair question. And what I'll say is love on the spectrum is a given snapshot, and it's also a facet of reality TV. So there are people like myself and Crystal who have lower support needs, and there are those who you might think of more of the stereotypical kind of autistic person who has higher support needs. One of the things that I personally believe in is that every single person is willing and is deserving to have a consensual, loving relationship with those that they choose to go and have, whatever it is that they look like. And I believe that they are capable of having and holding those consensual, loving relationships, being able to actually say what their valid yes and what their valid no, and those yeses and nos should be heard and validated.
Yes, I know should be validated. Just because some people in the community are not speaking, their voice is still heard. So, and me being a mom to a child that is not speaking, his voice is still heard. My next question is, if we haven't got to the fun segment yet. This is my last tough question that I think I'm going to ask you. I think. What has been your biggest challenge and how have you overcome it?
That is a great question. And I would say my biggest challenge has been accepting the parts of me that I thought were socially unacceptable, and being able to turn to those parts of me and say to myself, sometimes even looking in the mirror to look myself in the eyes, to say, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, I love you and I accept you just as you are. And I'm not going to fight you. I'm here with you for as long as you need me to be. And then being willing to just sit and be with those parts of myself and let them know that they are lovable just as they are. That part of me is lovable as the whole of me is lovable and worthy of love.
I feel like you got to the affirmation before. We still gonna ask you that question because that you was giving some good stuff, and I hope the awesome tribes like really loving what you just said. But now it's time to have fun. It is awesomely fun keeping it real segment. So I'm going to start a sentence, and you're going to finish it. All right.
Okay.
You just say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So to keep it on topic, I'm going to say embracing self love is so needed because I am worthy. I am enough.
And the universe finds me important just because I
Ooh,
exist.
that was a good one. First thing that came to your mind. Okay. The last test you sent, look at your phone. What was the last message? Keep it PG-13.
Last text that I sent
Mhm.
was I don't know if I'll get a free ticket to share for the one in May.
Y'all, I have never done this, so I'm gonna read the last test I sent. The last test I sent was thoughts. I kid you not, it just say thoughts. That's all it says. Yeah, I literally that's the last one I just sent. Filled in the blank. If I had a billboard, it would say, "If your life had a message, what would it be?"
Hmm. Okay, this is a good one. And if you've ever struggled with self worth, I want you to lean in and listen really close. By the power invested in me, by no one in particular, I hereby declare you now and forevermore worthy.
Mm, mm. Y'all, this must be the fun segment. You over here got me thinking and resonating. Okay, guys, so we're gonna switch lights for a day. Awesomely fun segment. So let me see which question I want to give you. What I got over here. I got two. Okay, because I think you're gonna give me a good one. If you could be one celebrity for a day, who would you be and why?
Celebrity. Oh, there are a couple of things that when and come to mind. First, the first thing that comes to mind is Taylor Swift, because I just find the whole Swifty fan base to be fun and enthralling, and the whole like check it off, check it off, just be fun and free and being willing to
That's
just
my
be
song
openly
too.
fun.
Check it out. That's my song. I was going through a breakup when that song came out, and I'll never forget. And I was like, "Shake it off, shake it off." Sorry, y'all. When he said it, I had to come back on camera. Now, this question is: what does "ultimately you" mean to you, and how do you live out that message every day?
Mm. To me, that means being your authentic self and doing what feels right to you. Yes, we have the societal expectations, and routines can often go and help our lives. And outside of what anyone else says, what is in here, in my heart, in my soul, that gets to be my guiding star of like what feels energetically right to me. And the more that I have developed my relationship with my own intuition and being able to follow the energy of what feels good and what feels right to me, the better my life has become and the more things have opened up for me in the world. So following my heart, my soul, and feeling the energy and trusting in that.
So before we wrap up, before I get to the question that I ask every single guest, I want you to tell my audience where they can find you. Also, if you have any offer for them, please let me know if I put in the show notes, and just lead them with who you are.
Sure. So with my website, you can go and find me at divined.life, divined.life. And as for a gift, I'm willing to gift a 30-minute call, and you can go to Call with Ico, CALLWITHICO.com to book that call. And for anyone that does go and book that 30-minute call with me, you'll also get a 12-minute guided meditation for releasing loneliness and embracing love in your life.
Mm. Now, before we wrap up this time, I would love for you, even though I feel like you already did this throughout this episode, we're still going to formally ask you, before we wrap up, I would love for you to share an affirmation that our listeners and audience can take away from today's conversation, something that reminds them to embrace their uniqueness.
Hmm. You are worthy and deserving of love just because you exist. You work the way you work, your brain is how it is, and you operate in the world how you are. And there's nothing wrong, bad, or broken about that. You are worthy and lovable just as you are right now.
Hmm. That was a beautiful way to end this episode. Ooh, you said a lot. And I'm actually embracing it because I too battle with feeling that, am I worthy? Am I enough? So I hope the listeners can take away what you just said, even they have to repeat it multiple times, because that is something their host, me, I battle with. Am I worthy? Am I worthy for love? Am I worthy for this platform? Am I worthy? So thank you for pouring your heart into this episode. Thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing me to interview you. And listeners, as always, I want you guys to follow, like, subscribe, comment, review this episode. I want you to go to the show notes and go to Ico's website, book a session with him, and become your true self and embrace who you are. With that being stated, everybody, this is Auesomely You Podcast, and this is the end. Good night, everyone.
Good night, and thank you.
No, thank you.
We rise, we shine, vowing voices, breaking the lines. This ain't just a podcast, this is a move. Celebrating every story, making room. For the ones who speak in ways they don't understand. For the hearts that love big. For the ones who take a stand. For the ones who see the world in a different way. We amplify your voice, let the world hear what you say. Every challenge, every win, every step you take. You are seen, you are loved, this is your space. No more